وضحة has been in the oil sector for more than 26 years, with a majority of her time in the KNPC. She is the first woman to hold positions as Executive Vice President at KNPC, as well as President of the Gas Processors Association, GCC chapter.
First of all, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here. We females typically consider things as a challenge. This is the way we are. And we focus on what we do. We as women adapt. You're setting examples for others, and you're paving the way for others to be accepted as well. Females do work in refineries in Kuwait. They have none. You will not modify the workplace for females. We work equal. It's not a matter of you giving us, and we take our place, and we compete equally. In the current circumstances, the majority are men. And they are the ones who supported you, who believed in you. It is just having a cause, believing in that cause, working towards that, and you will have a support system, whether it's female or male.
Wضحة has been in the oil sector for more than 26 years, with a majority of her time in the KNPC. She is currently the Deputy CEO, Meenaء Abdullah Refinery, KNPC. She is the first woman to hold these positions as Executive Vice President at KNPC, as well as President of the Gas Processors Association, GCC chapter. Very proud of her. She was determined to climb the career ladder and follow her dreams by building her expertise in different divisions and positions. Her influence and success were recognized by Forbes Middle East magazine, where she was ranked 8th in 2020, as well as 7th in 21 among 100 most powerful businesswomen. She has received the Woman Achievement Runner-Up Award as well. This is from Leadership Excellent for Women Awards. Wضحة had established the Worker Women Committee in the Oil and Petrochemical Industry Workers Confederation. Wضح's father, Dr. Ahmed الخطيب, is a well-respected and natural leader in Kuwait, who was passionate about the Arab roots and was never afraid to speak out. He started his career as a doctor, and his nature of caring for others was indeed passed to his children. During our earlier conversations, Wضحة shared with me why her father became a doctor and earned this high reputation in society and humanitarian deeds, and I will of course keep this for Wضحة to share with us during the questions. She has been raised in a family of activists who campaigned for equal rights, reforms and democracy. Dr. Ahmed was elected as Vice President of the founding assembly and was instrumental in the approval of the new Kuwait Constitution and the oil nationalization. From her mother's side, her aunt Lulwa Mullah is the chairperson of Kuwait Women's Cultural and Social Society. She was awarded the highest French civilian distinction, Officier de la Légion d'Honneur. And now, knowing her family's background, I'm not surprised, Wضحة, that you also earned affectionate name at KNPC as the Nasirat al-Ummal, the worker supporter. So thank you again, Wضحة. And I would like to start with my questions. The first question will be more about your career. Having been in the oil and gas industry for more than 26 years, you kicked off your career as process engineer, moved up to become a senior operations engineer, environmental team leader, the director of technical services, and now the deputy CEO of Meenaء Abdullah Refinery. So over these years, what are your thoughts on how the oil and gas industry have evolved in general and specifically for females working in it?
First of all, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here, to meet you all, and I thank you for allowing me to speak today. I think the oil sector has evolved, as we see a lot of females now working in the oil sector. It did not start a few years back. We had women in the oil sector and even in the petrochemicals starting from about the 70s, but there were only a few, يمكن handful. The majority we see in KOC, in upstream. There were quite a number of females who have been working in KOC for decades. In the 80s, of course, the oil sector segregated its responsibilities, so the refining was handled by KNPC specifically. There were also very few female engineers working there. I was not the first, طبعاً. But there were, as I said, handful, and not in all disciplines. And I think this is not only Kuwait specific. I think worldwide introduction of women in the refinery has taken a while. In some regions, it is still a challenge. I remember in the 90s, we went to be trained in Japan for the commissioning of one of the mega projects here in KNPC, which was the shifting from leaded gasoline to unleaded gasoline. So it necessitated the commissioning of about 8 units. And for us to get trained on this new technology, we went to Japan in the 90s. They were surprised that a female was among the group. Of course, we were 10. And I was the only female there. And they were surprised that females do work in refineries in Kuwait. They have none in the engineering sector. Also, I remember there was a conference in the United Arab Emirates held by Shell at that time, also in the 90s. And I was presenting a paper about sulfur recovery units and tail gas treatment and the introduction of amine and the foaming phenomena. Surprisingly, the designer of our plant was there. And he said, where do you work? I said, in the refinery. He said, inside the refinery? He's British. I said, yes. He said, no way, we don't allow it. So this concept is not only new here, it's everywhere. It has developed more in some countries more than others, but I think we females typically consider things as a challenge. This is the way we are. And we focus on what we do. So as I started, we were a few. In planning, there were a few. In technical services in general, there were a few. In laboratory, but that's it. We don't see them in the mechanical discipline. We've not seen them till years later. The first mechanical engineer, she was an instrument engineer, and I'm very proud to say her name. Huwaida Mbarak is now team leader instrument engineering in Mīnāء Abdullah, and she's one of the most brilliant engineers I've seen. She was vital to the commissioning of our mega project now in Mīnāء Abdullah. Operations highly depend on Huwaida, and you know how difficult to get the buy-in of an operator that says if Huwaida is here, things would move. So she was the first in instrument, and then came in دكتورة ماجدة منى القطان, who was the first rotating engineer, and now she's team leader rotating in Ahmadi. So it's always the first female, the only female in this discipline. Now it's not. Now we see them in different disciplines, in the refineries, all around. So things have evolved. We see them in safety, we've seen them in environment, we've seen them in all disciplines. We've seen them leading shutdowns in the refineries for the most complex units. So it has evolved a lot.
My next question about the family. You were raised in a family with considered as true change makers. The daughter of Dr. Ahmed, an influencer who made a huge impact in the politics of Kuwait, and he is a big advocate for the human rights. Your mother, Fatma al-Mullah, who herself was raised in a family of change makers and acted as a support system for your father and ultimately empowered her children. Having you as a rock in the Al-Khatib al-Mullah household, how did this shape your life and led you to be selected for Forbes Middle East magazine?
I think the homes have vital roles in bringing up. We were raised in a house that contributes a lot and volunteers a lot. Volunteer work is in our blood, and this plays a vital role when you understand that you have to give without expecting benefits. The concept of what's in it for me, I think, could be negative. When you come to do something, you have to understand when you work every day, you're working for your country first. And when you do it well, it positively impacts the state. And at the end, you will see the benefit, your family, your friends, yourself. And that's part of the giving. And that's an important point that needs to be really set in families. And you have to have the culture of giving others. It doesn't necessarily have to come back to you specifically, but it comes back to the country, to a bigger sector, and eventually you'll be living in a better place. If you continuously think, what's in it for me, the benefit will be very specific, very limited, and time-framed. But to sustain the benefit, you have to be a giving person. You have to. And that gives you the dedication and the devotion. And this is key. It's not necessary that you're an A student. It's not necessary, Tara, at work. It's necessary that you give it everything, and you give it the necessary focus, and you give it the devotion, and you give it your time. So when you focus on your work, this is part of the giving. And this is how we were brought up. You give without waiting for results on you specifically. And now people are connected. And you see how the social media, and we feel the world is connected. You've seen in the pandemic what happened in China. We're impacted. It's not a matter of what happens over there does not impact me. What happens in China does not impact me. What happens in the US does not impact me. You have seen this tiny virus, how it traveled, impacted the whole world. This means what you do will impact your society and what's adjacent to the society. So doing good builds up. It's a jigsaw puzzle. And you're part of that jigsaw puzzle. Financial benefit is not everything. It's not everything. Things do not flourish if you don't give. Things do not happen by itself. You have to contribute. And that contribution to societies who are in need, to sectors who are in need, to people who are in need, to causes which are necessary. This is how we have to bring in our kids to make them understand that we live in a universe that everything impacts everything else. You have to live positively. And when you give, you will see things come in return, not necessary now, not necessary after a year, but it comes back. So that is how I was brought up. You do things out of devotion, out of love to this country, out of respect to being a human, a positive human being. And you will see your surrounding, you will impact your surrounding somehow. And as you evolve up the ladder, you will see your impact is even greater. And when you be that person, even the workplace changes for others. I hear it from my colleagues when they call me and say, now we started coming to work happy. Happy. Not with benefits, more benefits, no, happy. And I have seen that, how it's impacted the performance. Let me tell you a personal experience. When you're dedicated, when you feel part of others, whether you are an executive or whoever you are. We had the challenge of starting up a mega project, specifically in Mīnāء Abdullah. Mīnāء Abdullah had to start about 43 units. ما أدري you call them factories هني ولا 43 units. With all kinds of challenges. Over and above, we had the pandemic. So, how can we do that? With no licensors, no vendors, not everyone is here. Restrictions, lockdowns. The stress of having a pandemic that evolves every week, you understand, and it's behaving differently. First, we started, no, you don't need a mask, and then, no, you need a mask. Then it was a lockdown. And then it is airborne. Having those concerns, having workforce you need to protect, and you need to start up a mega project. How do you do that? With expertise, not all expertise are there. So it was very necessary through devotion and dedication of all. It's a teamwork. It's not a one-man show. It's a teamwork. But someone has to start that. And then it cascades. It goes viral. This dedication goes viral, Tara. From one person to another. And everyone does his job and excels. We managed to commission units that the licensor says, without my presence, you will not commission it. You cannot commission it. We have trained our engineers to be equivalent to the licensors, and the licensors accepted them commissioning those plants. It is through the dedication, the presence at site with them. No one said, what's in it for me? You go to them at night, you find them. Everyone, all levels there. From manager to team leader to senior to engineers to operators, all of them are there. When we start a pump, you start a pump. But in this project, when we start a pump, from myself to managers to team leaders, we're all there standing next to the pump to start it. For 43 plants. In less than a month, we've commissioned 5 plants. We did that because everyone thought we have a bigger target, which is the country. We need to move from our current product slate to the next through commissioning those units. And it was all done through dedication, through commitment. No one said, will I be given a bonus? ولا أحد. No one. It was the happiness to do it. And it only happened because everyone gave. Everyone was there. There was a support system. فthis is this is key, and this comes from schools. It comes from homes. It comes from how you are brought up. This is, I think, how it impacted.
I think you are absolutely right. Dedication and commitment is a key for success. That's true. My next question more related to sustainability. During your career, you assumed many roles related to protecting the environment and led many of KNPC major environmental projects, such as the Clean Fuel Project. How do you see the contribution of the oil and gas industry towards sustainability? And in your opinion, what are our responsibilities towards sustainability as leaders in this industry?
I think it is crucial in a fossil fuel industry to be sustainable. You have to be conscious and aware towards the environment, of course. Let me start by probably the efforts that was done. Being a refining business, typically you would consider a refining business to be a polluting business, but we started years ago going steps ahead of what's required. We have, of course, in Kuwait, the regulations set by EPA. We have worked together when we started establishing the Environment Division before my time even, and then I took over this role. We made sure that through transparency, full transparency with EPA, that we present our environmental status. So where we are and where should we be, according to the regulations. We've taken that steps ahead in implementing standards that are well known internationally, but not yet set as limits in EPA. For example, we have introduced a program called odor management to be zero odor in refineries years ago. And to do that, one of the major efforts that we had to do is to understand what are the sources of odor, to stop them. So we've signed up to one of the biggest, it was the biggest contract in the world at that time. It's a leak detection and repair program. So we bring in tools to measure, to understand where the leaks are. Leaks you cannot see, you cannot feel, you cannot sense. So through IR cameras and other tools, we've identified all sources in KNPC, in all refineries, depots, stations, you name it. What are our sources? And then put in programs, whether it is just procedural or it's a project, to cut those odors. At that time, it was a new concept. What is an odor-free refinery? I remember when we presented this, a high official said, what do you mean a refinery without odor? Typically, there's odor from a refinery. That's not true. Probably that was decades ago. It's not true now. So we brought in this concept, and we started training people on how to capture the order, how to monitor those orders, and then embed through our maintenance system the maintenance of the sources that leak. Today, it's a cultural shift. We used to enforce it through the environment. Now, the operators, before they start a unit, they call the environment to scan. As they start, they scan to check if there's any odor source. It's a shift. Sustainability for us is a must. It's a competitive market now. So you have to optimize your operation. You have to look for new technologies. You have to innovate. You have to be cost efficient. And all of that needs everything. It needs research, needs scouting for technologies, needs changing your procedures, changing your practices. And the most important is the mindset. And that's really the most difficult. When people are used to habits, used to things, it becomes a habit. How to change that is the most difficult. And we have programs doing that. And the buy-in is the most important. Then they can do it in front of you and then forget it. But changing the culture is the most difficult. We are now promoting a lot the innovation, especially with the young engineers. Innovation and technologies and techniques that is making us spend a lot, takes time. Routine maintenance, non-routine maintenance, tank shutdowns, which takes the majority of the time. How the last innovation, we did a session on innovation. We brought in groups and they've competed. And it was basically on what are the main challenges in a refinery and how to bring innovative techniques to improve them. And there were 8, 9 initiatives only on one item. Being cost efficient, increasing the value from your processes, integration, maximizing integration with petrochemicals is vital. This is how you sustain your business with this competitive market. Lana, you have green energy, you have alternative fuels, so you're competing with all of that in a world that is moving towards more green energy. And so to sustain your operation, you have to dig deep, optimize the last drop, maximize, convert, and make sure the whole value chain is really integrated in full.
Agreed. Need a lot of mindset changing and culture as well, and investment. Okay.
Definitely.
My last question is more about the impact of COVID-19. Of course, leading a team and or the organization through this period, like lockdowns, infections, fear, disruption, is extremely challenging. What were the greatest challenges that you and your team faced, and what are the learnings that you can share with us?
Well, I think adapting to a pandemic, an unknown, this virus was really an unknown. And information developed in days and weeks about the behavior of this virus, how it transmits. So it was, the changes were very fast. Accordingly, in parallel, you have to also interact with that. You have to protect people. We live in an industry that operates 24 hours. You can't stop a plant because you have a pandemic, but you have to protect your people. So protecting of the people, then the assets, is vital. And you have to really abide by all the regulations and new regulations that evolved through the 2 years that we've seen. The major challenge was that we had to commission a project. How do you commission projects without people? So what we did is we segregated the groups. We segregated even the shifts, and we had a standby shift protected at home. Because when a shift, any person infected, the whole shift is down. You have to check them. They have to be locked down. So you lose a shift. It's not a person, it's a whole shift. So we kept adapting to those changes, making sure we always have a protected group that comes in if a shift is hit. Yani we came to a time that one of the plants, we had minimum operators running the plant. So we had the doors locked. No one goes in to infect the operator. We had the team leader next to the door protecting. Yani, this is an industry that runs 24 hours. Production will not stop. The country relies on the products, on selling of our products. And every day for a plant is major loss. So, but the number one priority is you have to protect the people. So we had to go in and make sure everyone is wearing a mask. Everyone is abiding by the regulations and what comes from the Ministry of Health. Everyone is aware, so even the buses, you name it. It was a whole protection system from everyone, whether it's awareness from our doctors, whether it is ensuring the shifts are abiding by the regulations, it is having backup people. I think we learned a lesson, but we also learned that we do adapt, and we adapt quickly.
So now I would like to give the floor for our attendees to address any question. Thank you so much, Wضحة.
شكرا.
Through your successful career, have you ever felt imposter syndrome or self-doubt, and how did you navigate your way through it?
يعني I think this is human nature, but we are fighters. I think I come from a house that they're brought up to be fighters. And females are really are fighters. I think the vast majority are fighters. This is I think human nature. But you reformat yourself again quickly. Then your target is to perform in a way that satisfies you first. So you will not allow yourself.
When Abir started the session, she mentioned the story about Dr. Ahmed al-Khatib and the reason why he became a doctor. So I'm just doing a reminder. I know the story, but I think it's going to be inspiring for others as well. If you can share it with us.
I think early 90s, it was not easy for Kuwaitis to get good medical attention at that time. He saw the discrimination, and he decided to become a doctor to treat Kuwaitis properly, give them the right attention, the right medical attention. It was not his choice. مو انه والله يحب الطب بس انه it was a must. So he went and studied medicine through shorter years. بعد he was an A student, he had a target, so he wanted to come back quickly. So eventually he became the first doctor, came back, started as a surgeon, then studied tropical medicine, because the kinds of diseases that are in this region are a bit unique at that time. He came back as a tropical medicine physician, but signed as a general doctor so that the fees are less for people, just to make sure that everyone affords. Of course, who does not afford, he does not take money until now, but so that the fees are lower, he registered as a general doctor.
Hi, my name is Bashair Al-Maraghi. My question is actually a follow-up to Zainab's question. So she talked about how you tackled self-doubt. My question is, how did you tackle people who doubted you, people around you who you were working with who doubted you? How did you get them to trust your opinion, trust your judgment? So how did you develop that?
I think all of us could write books about this. This is always the first question. Do you understand what you're doing? It's a typical question. It's just, you don't have to prove yourself to others. You just do your work properly, and then your work proves to others that you're doing it properly. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just satisfy yourself and do your job correctly. That's it.
يعطيك العافية وضحة.
عافية.
معك إسراء حاجية senior process engineer.
That's why.
That's why قاعدة عيني. Okay.
Familiar face.
So ما شاء الله, from your talk we could feel the positive energy, how proud you are, not from your career and yourself only, from your team, the achievement that you all are doing together. But my question, like, do you have plans, objective? MashaAllah, now you reached high level, and inshallah you will continue, and we'll see you in higher positions and higher levels. Do you have objective plans or programs even, like in KNPC? How now to develop second وضحة, third وضحة? How to develop the new ladies or females? How to support them?
Well, I like this question. لأن كان في بالي شيء أقوله وما قلته. زين. Let me share something that I'm very proud of. I strongly believe that training properly is a key to success for any organization. And not through the typical training. The hands-on training is the most important. I was part of a committee headed by KPC CEO. It was called Professional Women Networking. The aim was to improve gender diversity in the oil sector at that point of time. So I was asked the question, how do we improve gender diversity? So I said, about, let's say, the highest percent of workman force is operations, which is for male only. Why is it only for male? Who dictated that? They said, can you prove that females can work in operations? I said, they can work anywhere, but if you want, we'll do a pilot. Let's establish a pilot. And we'll make them work as operators. Train them as operators. So we were a committee, of course. It wasn't me. There was a committee, and we interviewed females that are willing to work as field operators, start from scratch. So a few engineers came from Shu'aib Refinery at that time, from Ahmadi, and they were selected. There were certain factors we had to address. So we did a program, an intensive program for them, and we selected one of the most difficult plants in the refineries for them to be operators at. We selected the hydrocrackers, and we selected the gas plant. So 3 of them worked in the hydrocracker, 2 in the gas plant. When they went to the hydrocrackers, of course, it was strange that females are working as operators. Do we train them as operators, or is it orientation only? Or so we spoke to them. We had to really touch base with operations and consider them a newly joined operator and train them well and examine them. And if they do not do well, you fail them. Treat them as an operator. So females, what do? They study and they make notes and they use colors in their notes and the PNIDs, and the operators came to me, this is the first time we see people take notes and PNIDs colored, and they really study. And they were at site for long hours. And then everyone saw that they're serious. هذا بس ردًا على يمكن سؤالك. They saw that they're serious. They were doubting them. I remember I went to the portion who were assigned to the gas plant because they came to me. They said, no one's training us. They're putting us in an office. So I went to the trainer. I said, how are they? So they said, good. I said, why are they in an office? He said, they're females. Let them sit here and drink coffee. And they're good. I said, listen, I want to see them outside, trained as operators. And if they do not do well, you fail them. He said, who are you? I said, I'm manager, technical services, responsible for this program. Fail them if they don't do well. They excelled. One day there was an emergency in the hydrocracker, and the females were there. It was after hours, they were there getting trained. And they joined the emergency, safely shut down the unit, and the operators looked at them. So they took their green helmets. Our operators are green helmets. They took the green helmets and they gave them to the female operators. In the gas plant, they did the same. When we graduated them as supervisors, they excelled in the field operator training. They excelled in the panel operator training. They became supervisors. So they are certified supervisors in 2 critical units. And they set the grounds for the new training in all technical services. So what we did is that everyone wanted to be trained like them, because the right path is to become, for a chemical engineer, is to become a strong operator, then go to other disciplines to understand the business. And this was our wish list before. But when we did this pilot, it became part, we established a new structured OJT, on-job training, based on this pilot, based on the success of this pilot, because those females not only became operators, well-trained operators, they proposed modifications to the plants that benefited the plant because they were trained there, while they were trained. And they did both. They succeeded as supervisors in operation, and they completed their structured OJT as technical services process engineers. Now, they are one of the best engineers we have. Operations rely heavily on them. One of them was in the commissioning group for clean fuel projects in Ahmadi, selected by name. So we've shifted the whole training. And this is my target. We've shifted the training in technical services for Ahmadi Refinery, for Meenaء Abdallah Refinery, and accordingly now, when we commissioned units in Meenaء Abdallah, because we trained females and male on this newly structured on-job training, they became commissioners now in clean fuel projects in Meenaء Abdallah. The best. يعني الاوبريشنز عاده ما صعب يمدحون احد لما يقول لك فلانه لازم تكون موجوده. This is one of the major achievements. All of the engineers now in process engineering divisions, both refineries, are operators in plants, have been trained as operators in plants, and then they are engineers in process engineering. And the know-how has jumped. We have seen it. Drastic improvement. Accordingly, even the ones who are 7 years and 8 years, we brought them back into the same program لأن it made a difference. So my target is that this should be the training, and this is what I'm doing. Now it is getting cascaded to the planners. And we have done it now as a pilot for the maintenance. Now HSE are adapting the same thing. So my target is to create second, third, fourth, fifth lines. And this is what we are doing. And I see people much ahead of me. We have engineers, male, female, now much ahead of me. In a few years, I will see them excel.
Right. First of all, thank you very much for your time to be here and sharing your experience with this group. Very, very inspiring and very useful, particularly on this give without expectation to the contribution to society. Okay, now my question is related to inclusion diversity. I think we came a long way, okay, in terms of inclusion diversity. It gets a lot of traction these days, but still, I believe that there's still a lot of work needs to be done. Okay, and if I were to ask you for any one or two advice, okay, that you would give to this young woman professional in order for them to be better in their career, to be happier in their life, what would that be?
My advice is what I've been talking about, is to keep on being devoted and focus on work. Focus on what you have. لأن you're setting examples for others, and you're paving the way for others, and you're making it easier for others to be accepted as well.
Mohammed Al-Sharhan, I'm heading the HR department here in EQUATE. So before my question, just like to mention a very small story that builds on what you mentioned. I remember when I first joined PIC as a fresh engineer with a group of all male fresh engineers at the time. One of the assignments was to draw PNIDs based on the actual plant in PIC. So we came back with very sloppy scribbles, almost on a napkin, like kind of drawings. So Sbei Budakhil, he was the training team leader at the time. So he came back to us and said, no, I'll show you a sample. And he showed us a sample from a previous female engineers, which was just, as you mentioned, very neat, colored, coded. So needless to say, we really hated them for setting that standard for us. So my question is as management here in EQUATE, this is something that, of course, as part of diversity and inclusion and being more inclusive to women, of course, we strive to and try to make sure that to make women to elevate. I mean, basically help women elevate, whether it's in technical fields in general, or in general in leadership position. Of course, one of the questions that come to us, which I think question you mentioned just now, is how can we make the environment women friendly? You know, how can we make, especially the manufacturing environment, the manufacturing plant environment, the shift environment, how can we make it women friendly? How can we make women comfortable in that environment? We've had our ideas, we implemented some of them with mixed, of course, rate of success, but I thought I would get your input on that, please.
الحين an industry يعني factory is a factory. You can't make it child friendly or women. It's a factory. The environment is. We as women adapt. What we need بس شوية logistics. Minimum. Nothing else. You will not modify the workplace for females. We work equal to how men work. Nothing needs to be changed. بس the basic needs. Adil, other than that, nothing. We make the opportunity. You make opportunities for others. It's not a matter of you giving us we take what is right and we take our place and we compete equally.
Being yourself from a political family, you know, a few years back, there was some kind of an impose that women should not be working in shifts, and there was a law being built on that road. Now, that nothing is more discouraging than a law preventing you from being at a workplace. What are your thoughts on that as a company? How can we help in emphasizing the importance of women being in such workplace and influencing the politics to understand the need?
I think this is the point يمكن I mentioned, but probably it was not clear. There was a committee اللي هو Professional Women Network. We actually went into a discussion on those regulations. يمكن حتى رقمهم 23-24 كانوا. And we got an exception. As of now, there is an exception. You can work after 7. You can work in other disciplines. It's just the implementation now, and I think you've done it. You've done it. فما في شيء يقول لك لا الحين أكو exception طلعناه. Go ahead. إن شاء الله.
I just have a quick follow-up على you said that you did a successful pilot for female operations in the refinery. So does that mean in the future we will see vacancy announcement for KNPC ما في هذا statement للذكور فقط؟ إن شاء الله. بس no set plans yet?
يعني أنا أنصح إن you also discuss with my colleague Nadia Badr Haji. She's leading a committee focusing again, continuing to focus on gender diversity inclusion واليوث بعد. They're moving where we stopped على الexception. They are moving ahead towards making sure we don't see that. بس أعتقد الupdate is مع نادية. يعني I wish her luck إن شاء الله success. So I'm sure they can do it.
If I can just say, I just wanted to actually compliment you on the mega achievement that we've seen in recent months. As you've said, you've led a team to commission a world-scale revamp and even grassroots projects with a major complex in Meenah Abdullah. This is not easy. We also want to extend this kind of praise to the team that you lead. I think, as you said, all of them were on the ground doing what is right. And this is, I think, if I can take something from today, is knowing that when you do what is right, good things will follow. Whether it's the achievement, whether it's the opportunities, or whether it's the right time to change and to give back to society and expect the return in multiple folds in different places. Thank you, Wضحة. It's been inspiring, and I really appreciate your visit to us.
Thank you. By the way, I especially resonated with the concept of be a giving person and not give back, but the way I see it is pay it forward, right? All of us who are here today, I think, are privileged in many ways, and likely because somebody else paid it forward, we may not even know that, but we are benefiting from that. So for us to make sure that we become those people that are paying it forward. My question to you was on the role of men as allies in this journey, right? What has been your experience, and how do you see that evolving in terms of men taking an active role as well to ensure that there is an equitable environment in the organization? Did you experience that?
How it progressed is not only it was supported by men. يعني our progression, believing in us, opportunities, taking higher roles has always been supported by men. It did not come because you were pushed by a group of females, no. Because of your performance and because there's a group that believes in you, that believes in your capabilities. In the current circumstances, the majority are men. And they are the ones who supported you, who provided opportunities, who believed in you. It is just having a cause, believing in that cause, working towards that, and you will have a support system, whether it's female or men.